afternoon. My name is Virginia Benedetto. I am from Stratford, Connecticut. I'm a co-founder and technology coordinator for Connecticut Citizens Defense League. I do thank you for having this public hearing today. Unlike the last gentleman, I do believe that some school teachers or administrators or staff otherwise in the school should be allowed to carry a concealed weapon if they have been properly trained and licensed. I believe that allowing them to carry would mean that they may have a chance to ward off some dangerous threats, such as the case in Newtown. It's not guaranteed ever, and I do agree with a lot of the things that have been said today in regard to improving the school security, but this would be a measure in case an active shooter were able to get past those barriers that were put in place. A common theme of mass shootings is that they all occur in places where guns are banned, which is a gun-free zone, allowing individuals that have gone through training to carry a weapon would be able to protect themselves and others. Also, I've only heard one other person mention today about school faculty receiving basic self-defense training, and I'm not talking about firearms training, I'm talking about general self-defense. I don't know that any teacher or staff member would be able to ward off an active shooter that had a gun, but if there was someone that was posing a threat, if they could somehow ward that off because of some situational training that they had, I believe that would be a good idea. Also, I've seen some other bills that have come through the past week proposed regarding the resource officers, also emergency and the procedures for those emergency drills to increase so that the schools know what they're doing with those. Finally, I would just ask that since this is different for me, I'm used to going to hearings related to bills specifically. I would ask, what is this task force? What is the ideal plan for after you've discussed things? Will there be bills and more hearings, or is something just going to come out and say this is what we've decided?
So, Virginia, you've reversed the process. Before I answer your question, I guess I'd like to open it up to task force members who might have questions of you. And then once we've dealt with that, I'll be happy to sort of give you a sense of where we Representative Acker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was a very good testimony, different than others, so I'll give you some credit, some guts. You mentioned that the conversation, and essentially you almost have to create a gun-free zone on that, but that's not my question. I think more of a comment. But the school self-defense, process in terms of being trained in some kind of self-defense or professional development, or through going through when you're higher ed, if you're going to become a teacher, some self-defense, and then additional courses. But I guess I'm reiterating what you're saying, is I think that's an interesting topic, the self-defense, but also maybe not a firearm, but a mace type of in a first aid kit. So
I envision. I know my mother has been through one. She's in the medical profession. I believe it was for women only, where they have the padded guy, and they teach the women how to ward off an attacker. If he comes up from behind, this is what you do to get away from him. If he's coming at you from the front, this is what you do. Things like that.
Other questions for the witness? If not, I will share with you that this is my 19th year in the legislature. It's the first time I've seen a task force like this. So it's we're in uncharted waters. I think that based on conversations I've had with my co-chair, we'll be seeking to gather some more information, then come up with a list of items that represent bipartisan, bicameral consensus, and recommend those to the broader task force of which we're a part. And that task force will then cull through those and make recommendations to the General Assembly, and we'll probably end up with legislation sometime end of February, early March. I appreciate you asking the question, because there are probably a lot of people out there who've been wondering. But that's the rough outline, and the details we're working out as we go along, because just as this tragedy was unprecedented, this expedited process we've developed is also without precedent. We're just going to try and do the best we can. Madam Co-Chair.
Thank you very much. And just to add to that for your information, we're also going to consider the bills that have been proposed as well, so that individuals that put those forward will be able to have the confidence that their opinions being taken into consideration. That being said, and hopefully, again, this committee will meet together to discuss all of the results of today's public hearing and informational session both, and come up with its consensus proposals going forward. And we might even add some other things that were not consensus, but we could put it on a different sheet of paper and send it to the higher leadership for them to consider as we meet all together. But you should know that the regular committee process will also be ongoing, and so individual bills will probably go before the Judiciary Committee, the General Law Committee, or Public Safety as well. But I believe that this is going to be the focus of trying to address the issue directly of the Newtown shooting would probably be the end result of this committee work.
Any other questions for the witness? Now, thank you for your time and your testimony, and we go to Mike.